Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube? This is SEL0320 representing JVS. I'm back here again for a brand new movie review, which is so exciting to me. This is an advanced screening for the movie that I was on the fence about, but the name of the movie is In the Heart of the Sea. This is a Ron Howard picture starring Chris Hemsworth, Christian Murphy, what's the other guy from... he was Q from Spectre and Skyfall. Ben Henshaw. And then, of course, they also got Tom Holland. And to be honest with y'all, this was actually a good movie. I don't know what everybody else's perception was, but looking at the trailers, they weren't giving it to me. I wasn't completely sold on Chris Hemsworth as being, like, you know, the hero story. I thought it was going to be really cliche. I thought his performance was not going to be riveting or anything insightful or anything like that. And this other thing is, it's not actually Chris Hemsworth's story. It's actually someone else's. And basically, I'll kind of give you a synopsis about it. It takes place in around 1980s, an event that really happens that inspired the writer that actually wrote Moby Dick, Herman Melville. Herman Melville is actually in this picture, and the person that's playing it is Ben from this Q from the Skyfall and Spectre. And from that point, he's trying to get the understanding of this story, and it's told by a specific person. I'm not going to reveal to y'all, but from that point, it just goes in a deeper way that I didn't even expect. And so I'm going to go ahead off of what I thought about the imagery, what I thought about the score, what I thought about the acting, and also what did I think about the actual story. So first off the gate, the scope of this movie is so vast. Like, there are shots that they do in the beginning of the movie, specifically on the ships, that they could only be done on an actual ship. Not a ship that's inside of a huge green screen room, but a ship that's out at sea that they've taken effort into designing in a certain kind of way of having certain cameras be at a flow. There was one camera that I saw taking something from an oar where they were trying to get the sail out, and the camera shot down and then went straight back down, and then they go to a grand CG element of something happening. And like, even like the storm sequence, I thought it was excellently executed because there was a blend of natural effects as well as VFX, and it was just done so well. I mean, the biggest thing about this, though, which I'm going to play into when I talk about the story, is when this sperm whale comes up. The white sperm whale, which we know of as Moby Dick, they did their job with this, because every time it came up, and some people are going to critique it and say it showed up too much. I felt as though this is the embodiment of a story that we didn't really understand. That this creature, kind of like Jaws, kind of like the Jurassic Park effect, when it shows up, you feel levels of dread, you feel levels of pity for anyone in the vicinity of this thing. And they do it so well. And even like the prosthetics that they use as far as the characters. Now, each of the actors, they grew out their beard. Like, there was a point you see everybody's kind of shaved, clean cut, in shape. By the end of it, something happens and they just so haggard. They're so run down. And they do some great work with the prosthetics, but as well, it took acting, because the actors such as Chris Hemsworth, they literally allowed their bodies to just disintegrate. And like, if you look at the behind the scenes, look at Chris Hemsworth for what he had to put his body through for this one, and even afterwards, like it was mind blowing. The other big surprise about this was definitely the score. The score was amazing. I don't know if y'all know this, but this probably was one of my favorite scores this year. And I mean, I really like the way that they did the score with Sicario. I feel like Star Wars is going to be amazing. I love, of course, the Mad Max. But this one was one of the most freshest ones. And I was like, man, this feels like its own kind of meted and weighted movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing that marks a great movie. When you think of Jaws, you think about the score. When you think about Superman, you think about the score. When you think about Star Wars, of course, you think about the score. And this one was no different, but it had its own kind of feel to it, and I loved it. Now, the acting, okay? Tom Holland, that's going to be eventually Spider-Man, does a great job in this one. I know y'all were thinking, I'm going to talk about Chris Hemsworth, but no, like, the character was so, you know, he's a kid, he's trying to make his way in Mark and trying to be on this vessel and doing his job, and he's just put through the ringer. Like, you feel for this kid. At one point, there was this small spoiler alert, he has to go into a whale that they already kind of captured ahead of time, because they're oilers. They try to get oil from whales, you know, that's the reason why they're hunting these whales. And he has to go inside of it, and I'm just like, oh God, I can't believe this kid has to go with this. Even like throughout most of the picture, there are moments where he's crying, there's moments where he feels dread, there's moments where he feels suffering, and he does that so well naturally. He's a great actor, surprisingly. And Chris Hemsworth, I will say this on record, this is his best acting. No, not Black Hat, no, not, what was that race car movie that he was in? I forget the name of it, Rush, and definitely not Thor, but this one, he gained my respect. like straight up, he tried to pull off this accent that sounded, you know, Americanized and not, you know, Australian or British or anything like that. And there were times it was crackling here or there, but it was all about the prestige of the performance. His character was a character that everybody looked up to as a leader but couldn't be. It was like almost like the Captain Kirk of his situation. It was just ironic, given that he was the dad of Captain Kirk in Star Wars movies. Anyway, Star Trek movies. But in this one, he does a great job of somebody that has a willingness to fight, has a willingness to live, but at the same time is level-headed. Whereas you had another person that played the captain, which his name was, what was this guy's name? Ben Walker. So Ben Walker plays the role of, what was his name? George Perlman. And then Chris Hemsworth plays the role of Owen Chase. I think where I've seen Ben Walker is this new movie. Oh, he was Abraham Lincoln. That's where I've seen him before. I was like, I know I've seen this dude somewhere else. And I think he's also going to be in a Nicholas Sparks movie that's coming out really soon. But even Ben Henshaw, him and Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson, I'm not going to say who his character is, but he's one of the survivors. One of the main survivors of this tale. And I'll talk about that in the story in a second. But between Brendan and Ben's interactions when they're talking about the story of what's going on, because basically Brendan's trying to write it all out and everything, like, they have some amazing key moments. And matter of fact, there's a person that was actually in the Game of Thrones series, Michelle Fairley. She plays the wife of the character that Brendan Gleeson is playing. And even her, there's this one sequence towards the very end where he's kind of started to talk about the story of his survival through this situation, where you're like, oh my gosh, that's love. You know, just even in the interaction between the wife and even like the guy that's kind of listening, trying to write it, it was a deep scene that could have been done, you know, so poorly, but they paid attention to it. And I think I give credit to Ron Howard for that, because he has a good way of having those emotional jerking moments. But normally in his movies, he just kills everybody. And I'm not saying this is an exception to that, but it was like this actually kind of meant something, you know what I mean? Everybody's acting, to me, was really well done. Even like Cillian Murphy, I've been a fan of him since 28 Days Later. Like, he did a great job as well in this one. Matter of fact, him and Chris Hemsworth's character are really close in this movie. So I thought the acting was amazing. So as far as the visuals were concerned, as far as the score is concerned, I give that a 9. As far as the acting is concerned, I actually give it an 8.5. I really liked it. And then as far as the story, surprisingly, I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't think I'm even going to do a spoiler review. I'll just try to dissect it as best I can. So this story, like I said, surrounds the character, well, not the character, but the actual writer, Herman Melville, that will eventually write Moby Dick. Now, the events that transpired in the 1820s was what inspired him. But it's specifically the story that he goes and talks with this man, with his wife, and he's intrigued by it. He's almost like tortured by it. He wants to hear it, but he doesn't instantly get it from the guy. It's almost like a push and pull, this kind of thing that's happening between him, his wife, and the interaction. And then when the story starts kind of unfolding, like, there's segments where they stop and they talk about, like, man, how did that make you really feel? And he doesn't even want to go there. It's almost like a part of his soul is missing. And you're intrigued by this because you're like, man, how much worse can it get? But when you think about the character Owen Chase, which is Chris Hemsworth's character, and his love for his wife and all these different kind of things, of his love for his crew, and then they're put on this journey that basically they were already at odds because of politics, them needing to actually go and get a certain quota, and they think they're gonna have it, and then they meet up with somebody that tells them about this kind of this story of something that happens out really far where they can get a lot of whales, and from that point on, after they get to where they need to go, that's when the story just unfolds in front of you. Like everything that was kind of building up, it hit its high mark. I mean, they got into some hairy situations beforehand, like just because of leadership and like a dissension thing that was kind of going on, but it didn't hit a head until they ran into this sperm whale, this white sperm whale that literally throughout most of this movie, in my opinion, tortured them. That's the only way that I can kind of put it, because what these men go through, it is hard to watch. It is riveting, it is inspiring, and at the same exact time, it is very sad. Because there are moments in this that like you're just like, oh my gosh, did that really just happen? Matter of fact, the guy that played Nick in the Fear the Walking Dead, he's in this movie. He plays, the guy's name is Frank Dillion. He plays the role of Henry Coffin. He even does a great job, because there's this moment where he wants to kind of defy Owen Chase's character. They're kind of clashing because of specific reasons that have to do with entitlement and prestige of like character, you know. But he even has like kind of this one selfless moment. I was just like, wow. And like I said, it's all about them trying to survive for the remainder half of the movie. And you see the crew disintegrate. You see their hope and their dreams just kind of disintegrate in front of you. And as far as the moviegoer is concerned, it makes me feel like it's really compelling. It makes me feel like I'm thinking about like, man, the old Jurassic Park, or even like, I don't know, like this kind of situation where you don't know and you are sure that most of these people are gonna die. You know, and it's like you want to hope for the best, but then you've got this one entity that even when they get this small glimpse of hope, like it just rips it away from them. And so it makes for a really good story all the way to the very end. I think it kind of had like more of a kind of a cliche end, but it was significant because it laid the foundation for why this movie was named In the Heart of the Sea versus the story or the true life story of Moby Dick. Like, if one thing I can say about this movie, they solidify why it's named what it is. And it even, like, there's one point where Owen Chase's character is talking and they're trying to survive and something happens. And he was like, what are we doing? You know, like, why do you believe that God can get us through this situation? And one of the men says, like, God chose us as, you know, like we were made in God's image, essentially. Like we were blessed to be here to be able, you know, to survive. And he was like, no, we're specks, you know. And it lays that perspective in this movie when you think about the grand scheme of what these men are really going through with this whale and in the body of water. Like you're around water, but you can't survive with that kind of water. And it's very heartfelt. It was really well orchestrated. I think Ron Howard did an amazing job with it. I hope it actually goes somewhere as far as box office. I don't know if it's going to jeer a lot of people because it doesn't have the name Moby Dick, as well as like when I thought about looking at the trailer, I didn't think it was going to be anything. So hopefully y'all go and check it out. I give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. This is a really good film, really well acted. And if you look at the disintegration of the way these characters go out, it's eye-popping. So hopefully you go and check out Into the Heart of the Sea. This is JVS, brand new movie review. Y'all have a blessed one. Peace.